Hey everyone, Coach Patrick here. Welcome back to another Coach broadcast. This week, I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about what I call your default aerobic zone. And this is an important concept inside Endurance Nation and for endurance athletics in general. Before I dive in, I just want to remind everybody, Endurance Nation is a place where we teach athletes to be smarter. We believe that smarter athletes are faster athletes. So you'll see episodes like these that live all over social media and the internet, and you'll also see similar content inside Endurance Nation as well. Our goal here is to both stimulate your thinking and your muscles, make sure that you're getting stronger on both ends of the spectrum. We believe that the intersection of those two axes are what make you the best possible athlete you can be. We want tough questions, we want tough workouts, and it all starts here with some conversations around particular topics. And this time I want to talk about default aerobic work. So let's take a step back for a second and talk a little bit about Endurance Nation. When we talk about Endurance Nation, a lot of our focus is on time optimization. How do we make sure you're getting the most return on investment for your training time? If you have an hour, what's the best hour for you? If we have 2 hours, what's the best 2 hours? If you've got time on the weekend, what does that look like? And we're essentially trying to optimize your schedule and your ability across a year to your race. So if your race performance, if you want to do Leadville mountain bike, if you want to do the Boston Marathon, if you want to do a 4-day adventure race, what fitness do you need? What do you need to be able to do physically? What's the strategy for using that fitness at that time? And how do we get you from here today to that point in time? What's the work that we can do along the way? What makes you stronger? What makes you smarter? What helps you build systems and processes in place? And a large part of that optimization revolves around intensity, where we will leverage intensity to create increased training stress across your season, but not manipulate your schedule. So what does that mean? What that means is essentially is that we're going through your year and saying, this is what we're trying to achieve with your fitness, and we'll use that intensity to ratchet up. So it lets me say, you've got 8 hours a week you can train or 10 hours a week you can train. I can keep you inside that 10-hour box by manipulating intensity up and down, and still keeps you inside that 10-hour box, which is important. The challenge with that system seems to place a large amount of focus on the intensity element of that equation. So people are saying, oh, intensity is the lever that makes me stronger inside the Endurance Nation system. So if some intensity is good, then lots of intensity is better. Let's do all the intensities, like more, right? Because if I could do 20% of my time could be at zone 4, what happens if I did 40%? Let's think about that. What happens if I did 60%? Incredible. Now I did 100%? Sounds amazing. That's the joke we've always told inside Endurance Nation about triathletes, right? You tell them a salt pill an hour is good. They'll say, then I'll take 4 salt pills because I'll be super good. And actually you'll be super sick. And so it goes with intensity as well. So intensity is a tool, but it's a strategic tool. It's integrated by the coaches into your training program to be successful. So you don't have a lot of flexibility around the intensity portion of the equation. If this screen right here was 100% bar, that intensity piece is pretty locked down. But what we do is we also give you permission in the other 80% of your time to do work. And that's what today's topic is, which is this default aerobic work. Outside of the intensity, which is that specific work we're doing to make that targeted change, the rest of your time is structured to allow you to build resiliency, to build skills, and to build effectively what we call aerobic durability inside the team. That energy system that sustains you. It keeps you happy as a human being, giving you your daily dose of endorphins, but it's also part of the evolutionary process of you moving from month to month, year to year, season to season, over the course of time, becoming a stronger and more efficient aerobic athlete. And that default aerobic pace is really important. So how do we get into a space of default aerobic pace? And I think the number one way to do that is to actually think a little bit about what the elements are. What's the ceiling for aerobic, right? So if you know your zones, if you follow heart rate and you follow zones, you can see with your heart rate monitor and your heart rate data on your watch or wherever you may follow it, you'll see your heart rate increase as you're going through some baseline levels of exercise. What we're looking for here is that zone 1 heart rate for most people if you've done some sort of a performance test, not using the 220 minus your age chart, which is a crock, but instead doing some kind of a fitness test 5K, doing a percentage of that. We have zones inside Endurance Nation, thanks to our Final Surge integration that'll do that math for you. Once you know what that zone 1 effort is, that by definition, super aerobic. Even upper zone 1 into low zone 2, still pretty aerobic. If we had to use non-heart rate metrics, it would be what your ability to still maintain a conversation while exercising. So super easy to do on a bike, aside from the fact that you're on a road and maybe someone's behind you or in front of you, so being safe while you're talking. On the run, it's easier to move the zones higher too quickly. And so that conversational piece is actually a really good test. If you follow me around town here on some of my runs, you'll probably notice I'm talking to myself. At least now I've got AirPods, so it looks like I'm talking to someone on the phone, but often I'm just gut checking to make sure that I'm doing the right thing by making sure that I'm actually staying in that aerobic zone. Can I actually put sentences together, actually talk, right? On an RPE scale, 0 to 10, 10 being all out, oh my God, this lasts for about 10 more seconds, and 0 being like, this is me just standing inside my house or even sitting inside my house. We're probably talking about a level 3 here is your default aerobic, which is some work but not work. So another way to think about it is if you just went out and said, okay, I'm gonna get my 8 closest friends around me and we're all gonna go out and do a workout together, what's the workout pace that all of us could stay together? Unless you're specifically biased to do a particular ability group, that pace will have to, by default, be pretty straightforward. Or a family bike ride. Take your whole family out, go for a bike ride. You default to the slowest person inside that group. That's your default aerobic pace, right? Which that can do it. We're fine. We're moving. We're being active, but we're not doing hard work. And the reason why this is important for us and for all endurance athletes is that we really need a separation. On one side, we have that intensity, the work that is actually, recruiting those fast twitch muscle fibers, doing a lot of metabolic work, high-end changes. Complementarily, we need that low-level aerobic work. It sustains us between these bouts of higher intensity. It proves to be a recovery mechanism, and it keeps us healthy, it keeps us resilient, all of those elements. So when we think about being active across the course of a season, the aerobic piece is important. Let me give you another reason why it's super important. When we think about the intensity, we're talking about speed. So if you say, I want to do a marathon in sub 4 hours, if that's a stretch goal for you, you're looking at the intensity dial because you're like, ooh, I need to turn these intervals up. I need to turn the pace of my runs up, more intense, so I can build the strength to be fast. On the flip side, people look at that and say, well, I'm doing this high work intensity, and who cares about this stuff? And the reality is on the aerobic side, it's actually very important. If you think about that 4-hour marathon, you have to be able to run 4 hours in a single go. Can't do that with the intensity dial. We can't just say, oh, I'm gonna run harder and longer at the same time. Doesn't work. That's where the aerobic component of our training comes in. That's where we build up resiliency over weeks. We get you from running, say, 4 hours in a week. Say you did 8 half-hour runs to doing 4-hour runs, to do 2 1 hour, 1 2-hour run, to eventually get in a place where you can do like a 3-hour run, right, on a big day, maybe a 2-hour run on Saturday, 2-hour run on Sunday. Just from a straight aerobic perspective, very easy, 30 to 45 seconds slower than your goal race pace, which for some of you may feel like walking. But what we're effectively doing is building the physical response, the physical work aerobically to be successful at that pace in a way that's completely disconnected from our race goal. So we're not worried about, am I or am I not running at sub 4-hour pace, which is what people forget about. Instead, we're saying, I am putting these big building blocks together that are going to allow me to enter the race knowing that not only do I have this high-end fitness and this strength, but I have the physical capacity, excuse me, but I have the physical capacity to be able to run 4 hours in close proximity. And that happens over time. So we don't want to think about just the intensity dial. We want that default aerobic setting as well, which is really important. So outside of those quality sessions, right now in the winter, our athletes have quality sessions on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. The rest of the plan is pretty open. They have workouts, they have guidelines, but people get flexible. Cross-country skiing, double run weekend because they're away, big bike weekend because they have warm weather as a sudden break. People want to swim. People want to do the ski erg. People want to do the rowing machine. Whatever that is, I'm okay with it because we're building up that default aerobic capacity, which is really important. And another element that's also important to the capacity is the ability for you to move beyond just your training. So in this third part, you can actually have a very aerobic lifestyle. So it's not just about your training, but it's about being active. It's that choice of saying, I'm going to walk up 2 flights of stairs 3 times a day, or am I going to take the elevator, right? Am I going to walk the dogs? I could walk them 5 minutes and just get them outside. I could walk them 30 minutes twice a day. I can still do stuff when I'm walking, but I'm getting an hour of walking in my day to be aerobic. And what's really interesting in this space is this takes your aerobic lifestyle and it removes it from just that training lens when you've been looking at things and saying, how am I living? And what's great about this aspect of the default aerobic setting is that this is very inclusive. Your family, your friends, your loved ones, your kids, your pets, everybody can participate in that default aerobic lifestyle. Yes, you could go out for lunch on Saturday as a family, as like a special treat, Or you could go to a park and then walk 90 minutes first and then go get lunch. Same time frame, maybe a little shorter lunch in that time frame, probably taste better because you'll be hungry, but you actually got some time outside being active. And that default aerobic life is really important because it is also foundational to you. Exercise can be something that is shared, not just hoarded by you and honed into this tool that you're using for a very specific purpose, that if it reaches that specific goal you have, then it's successful. And if it doesn't reach it, then it's not successful. And we're upset about it. Like that default aerobic setting is something that's beneficial across the board. And so as you think about the choices you're making, just not only in the 80% of your training that's more flexible, but also outside of your general training window, what else can we do? If you're only exercising 10 hours a week, and I say only because across the week you got 168 hours in a week. Now, sure, some of it you're sleeping, but if you're only exercising 10, there's a lot of other time in your week to be doing other stuff. How do you remain active? Do you stand at your desk? Do you take frequent breaks? What are the things that you do that allow you to remain active and continue to be healthy overall? And how do you make those choices that keep you in that happy place, but also bring others along with you, reinforcing that behavior and making it a little more contagious, hopefully a little bit stickier for you as well? Okay. Last piece for you, I think that is really important, is something to pick for your year, which is totally antithetical to how endurance athletes work. It's not just picking A races inside Endurance Nation. When you sign up, I say, what's your A race? What's your B race? People rank their races. I only let them choose 3 because otherwise people go nuts. And of course, everybody wants to choose A. They're all important. So we have to work through that a little bit. When I see all the A's, then I'm like, ooh, we gotta dial you down a little bit. I love you, but we're gonna dial you down a little bit. But it's actually picking aerobic events for your schedule. So things that are fun and that are stretch goals, but that are not related to performance. Examples of stretch goal things that just I myself have done in the past, like a big ride day. When I've been training for Ironman, I pick one day a year, I do a big ride. And nowadays with Zwift, it's indoors. I'll do the virtual Everest. It's like a 10-hour ride day. Outside, I would do 10 hours. So I'd go ride on my own in the morning for 2 hours, meet the group, do a century with the group, and then ride for 2-3 more hours afterwards. Yes, I would ride to an ice cream store. Yes, I would do all sorts of crazy stuff, but I'd be on my bike for 10 hours. A crazy stretch goal for me, something I had to train for and prepare for, and was very aerobic, but it was one day. It was a milestone, important for me, important for my development, but also open and accessible to lots of other people. On my 40th birthday, I ran 40 miles, and I did it in 5-mile loops, so other people could join me and participate, run with me, ride with me, walk with me for a little bit. If they wanted to join in, they could track me on my phone, see where I was, and join in anytime that they wanted. That was another sort of great example of being super aerobic. Also, just on the weekends with the kids and our pups, we also do a lot of hikes. They're not long hikes, but they're outside and exploring. To this day, my kids still love to see, when they see a giant rock, they want to climb on top of it because that's how they lived half of their lives as children. And that's like a huge important part of who we are as a family, which is default outside, default explore, default aerobic. And I encourage you to think about those events for yourself as well, not just for you, but for your family. What are things that you can do that can force you outside, force you to be active, force you to change the mindset of, I have to have everything be a performance-related goal by speed, and instead saying, what's the type of work that's fun, that's exploratory, that makes me healthy, that forces me to think about nutrition and think about pacing and forces me to solve some unique problems, but is not a make or break thing. There was no speed goal attached to my 10-hour ride. It was just get to 10 hours. That was it. So I could do it any which way I want. I could have pushed that bike to 10 hours. It was a 10-hour day. And so really thinking about all those elements as well. So as you think about your season, and folks are out there listening to this, remember that the aerobic component of your training is actually very important. Inside Endurance Nation, you have lots of flexibility with your aerobic choices. Our goal here is to keep you sustained and healthy and ready to do the higher intensity sessions when they're called for, to have you be ready. And then ultimately, when we get into that race preparation phase, the last 12 weeks, that's where things really get dialed in and we're really focused. But until that point in time, you do have that flexibility. And then your challenge really is to say, how do I expand this aerobic setting beyond just what I do for myself as an athlete, but what can I do more broadly as a member of a family unit, as a member of a community, as a member of a group, as a member of a tribe? What are other things I can do to continue this active lifestyle that keeps me happy, makes me a better human, helps me spread that positivity, and really, surprisingly enough, sets the stage for that higher intensity work to be even more valuable as we get closer. All right? Always think a little bit about that performance. Okay, folks, thank you so much for tuning into this week's broadcast on living the default aerobic lifestyle. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll be back next week with another one. Take care. See you guys.